I didn't want to admit it, but something in the air already felt wrong. Pulling up to my parents' driveway, I glanced at Mark in the passenger seat. He smiled, soft, familiar. The kind of smile that said he was exactly where he wanted to be. And for once, I believed it. 3 months of calm. Of laughter. Of feeling like maybe I wasn't just a backup dancer in someone else's spotlight. "Ready?" he asked, unbuckling his seatbelt. His hand squeezed mine. I nodded. "Yeah. Let's do this." Inside, the house buzzed with warmth. Balloons, cake, too many candles. My mom fluttered around like a wedding planner on double espresso. My dad's laugh boomed from the living room. And there, in the center of it all, was Sierra. Golden hair, red lipstick, and that laugh, sharp, charming, meant for audiences. "Eve," my mom sang. "You made it!" I forced a smile, kissed her cheek. Wouldn't miss it. When I introduced Mark, Sierra stepped forward, offering him a hug that lingered 2 seconds too long. He returned it, polite. But something in his eyes flicked, just a second. A look I'd seen before. Too interested. "You're even cuter in person," Sierra said, half joking. Mark chuckled. I swallowed. As everyone drifted into their roles, my mom micromanaging, my dad pouring drinks, Sierra pulled Mark toward the kitchen. That's when my phone buzzed. "Naomi. He's cute, but keep your eyes open. Your gut's been right before." I rolled my eyes, texting back, "Paranoid much?" But then I heard it, Sierra's laugh, light and hushed, from the kitchen. And Mark's voice. Low. Intimate. I walked past the kitchen, slow. Just enough to glimpse them standing too close over a bowl of chips. I smiled anyway. Because that's what I'd been taught to do. Logan. Ryan. Different years, same story. I remembered the way Sierra had played dumb. I didn't even know he was into me, she'd insist, batting her lashes. And every time, Mom would parrot the same line, "Don't make this about you. She's just more charming. Learn to be happy for her." So I had. I'd learned. Smile. Step back. Fade out. But Naomi's words throbbed in my mind, patterns aren't coincidences. At the hallway's edge, I caught them again, Mark and Sierra, whispering. Her hand grazed his arm. His eyes flicked away the moment he saw me. I turned back to the party, laughter ringing around me like glass shattering. Later, Mark said he was grabbing something from his car. Sierra had disappeared 10 minutes before that. I was pouring punch when my phone vibrated. "Can't wait to kiss you again later, that little freckle on your shoulder drives me wild." My breath caught. There was just one problem. I don't have a freckle on my shoulder. I blinked. Once. Twice. Then scrolled up. It was him. Mark. He had sent the message. To me. But it wasn't meant for me. I looked around. The party kept spinning. Music thumped. Glasses clinked. Sierra was still gone. So was he. I set down my cup. Walked quietly past the front door and around the side of the house. Toward the garage. The door creaked when I pushed it open. Dim light spilled through a dusty window. And there they were. 2 shadows. Close. Too close. A hand in her hair. His lips on hers. I didn't cry. Didn't gasp. Just raised my phone and pressed record. The moment he saw me, he jolted back. Eve, wait, I can explain. Sierra turned like it was a rehearsal. Calm. Cold. It's not what it looks like, she said. I met her gaze. You've said that before. And then I turned. Walked away. No yelling. No scene. Just a quiet whisper inside my ribs. Never again. I didn't cry. Not that night. That would come later, when the anger cooled into something far more dangerous. Have you ever discovered the truth in silence? Tell me below, what gave it away first, the look, the message, or the feeling in your gut? The door clicked shut behind me, but I didn't lock it. I just stood there, staring into the stillness of my apartment. The wine glass I grabbed felt cold in my hand. I poured Merlot, dark and smooth, but it just sat untouched on the table. The silence buzzed louder than the party music had. My phone rang. Naomi. I let it ring out. Instead, I opened my laptop and started scrolling old threads, emails, photos from better days that hadn't aged well. Logan's face popped up first. Tan skin, scruffy chin, arms wrapped around me at a festival we never actually went to. The photo was a promise that never got kept. I clicked the message chain. Sierra's name had crept in months before the breakup. She'd told me then, he came to me when you pulled away. Like it was a handoff. Like I dropped him, and she caught him in slow motion. I remembered my mom's words from that time, sharp and sweet. You're just too intense, Eve. Let people breathe. As if my love had suffocated him. On my wall, I slapped a yellow sticky note, 2016, Logan, accidental overlap. Then came Ryan. Another thread. Another pattern. I copied screenshots, printed them out, taped them next to Logan's. Slowly, a timeline emerged. Names. Dates. Words repeated like broken records. I stepped back and looked at it. My life had been redrafted by someone else's pen. I remembered that dinner. Ryan was fidgeting, his phone lighting up every 10 minutes. I leaned over and saw it, Sierra kiss mark. My heart froze. I waited till dessert. Then I asked him, point blank, right at the table. He denied it. She's just helping me plan your birthday. Of course. Of course, she was. Sierra's eyes filled with tears. I would never, she whispered. My mother leaned close, her voice syrupy. You always expect too much, honey. Maybe if you smiled more. Dad just kept cutting into his steak, then muttered, you do have a flair for drama. That night, I apologized. To her. For making a scene. Now, that moment sat pinned to my wall on another sticky note, 2019, gaslit into silence. My voice didn't crack as I whispered into the stillness, they didn't just protect her. They erased me to do it. By 2 a.m., I'd answered Naomi's call. You okay? She asked, voice gravelly with sleep. I put her on speaker and stared at the timeline on my wall. He texted me, I said. But not me. He meant it for her. A pause. Then her voice was iron. You're not paranoid. You're finally paying attention. I printed out every suspicious message. Lined them up. The phrasing was nearly identical. Logan, Ryan, even the guy from last year. All of them, different men, same pattern. Same hooks. Same flirty games. It wasn't charisma. It was strategy. I highlighted Sierra's phrases. I didn't mean to, he came to me, I couldn't help it. Every time I was happy, she hunted harder. This wasn't some tragic love triangle. It was surgical. By dawn, the wall looked like an FBI caseboard. Sticky notes, red thread, photos of smiles that now made me nauseous. I stood in front of it barefoot, arms crossed. My fingers brushed the last sticky note. A quote from a fight Sierra and I had years ago. Words she flung like knives. It's your fault. You were never enough. I peeled it off. Crumpled it. This ends with me, I whispered. Naomi's voice crackled from the speaker. You need to back this up. Digitally. Like a case file. You're not just calling her out. You're proving it. She was right. This needed to be bigger than just a confrontation. I printed out the photo from the garage. Sierra's face, mid-smirk, mid-kiss, like she knew I'd be watching. I pinned it dead center of the wall. Picked up a red Sharpie. Wrote underneath it. Game on, little sister. Before I could outplay her, I had to understand the rules of her game. When did you first realize someone wasn't just hurting you by accident, but doing it on purpose? Drop your moment below. You never forget it. The friend request blinked on my screen at 11:38 p.m., an old name I hadn't thought of in years. I sat in my living room, laptop open, the ambient hum of the city leaking through the window. The text displayed, Trevor Hillman wants to connect. My heart jolted. Sierra's ex-husband. A man she blamed for everything. A man I'd long ago dismissed as irrelevant. And yet here he was, asking for my attention. Naomi's warning echoed in my head, don't meet him. That's dangerous. But instead of ignoring it, I felt that familiar pull, curiosity wrapped in caution. My gut said yes. My walls said no. I told her I'd think about it, really meaning I'd drive out to meet him because I needed answers. The hours passed slowly. I collected my pepper spray, left the car running, and inched toward a risk I never allowed myself before. When Trevor opened his door, under the weak flicker of a hallway light, I didn't recognize the man. Hair thinner, eyes ghosted, shoulders slouched. The confident smile from wedding photos had vanished. I stepped inside anyway, the low-rent apartment smelling of stale air and faded hope. His voice was soft. You look just like her. I held steady. I'm nothing like her. Inside, the story poured out. He told me she emptied their joint bank account the day before filing for divorce. That he defended her, kept silent, protected her illusions. He described the time she feigned illness to cancel his job interview, demanded his presence, made him give up his chances for her dependency. And then he showed me a screenshot, breaking a man down to nothing takes patience. But once you do, you own him forever. It was hers, cold, calculated. My stomach clenched. This wasn't mere jealousy. This was predation stripped of remorse. Sierra didn't just sabotage lives, she destroyed them for amusement. Trevor paused. You know someone you should talk to, Adrian Klein. The name sliced through me like an invitation. Legal consultant, sharp-dressed, logical to a fault. He'd handled the divorce. He'd seen the blueprint before I had. Trevor handed me the card, voice heavy, she doesn't break people. She dismantles them. I tucked it into my coat and walked away into the dusk, the city lights blurring around me. The drive home held no music. My thoughts spun like tires on wet pavement. Sierra's voice from old memories taunted, "You're too emotional, Eve." My fingers gripped the wheel until my knuckles whitened. I remembered moments I'd dismissed, her gentle touch with Mark, her casual laugh too close to my boyfriend's ear. I remembered thinking I was the problem. But now I realized I was the witness. At home, I ignored the lights, went straight to my desk with resolve burning behind my calm facade. I opened my laptop, made a new folder, Victim 1, Trevor Hillman. I uploaded every fragment of evidence from tonight, screenshots, messages, testimony. My screen glowed with purpose. Naomi pinged, "You sure you're okay?" I responded, "I've never been clearer." Then I started a new document. The cursor blinked. I typed slowly. Operation Viper Mirror. Because if Sierra was the venom, Adrian might be the antidote. Have you ever ignored someone's red flags, only to realize years later how deep the damage went? Share your wake-up call in the comments. Eve didn't go home after work. The idea of walking into her quiet apartment, alone with her thoughts and the sound of Sierra's voice echoing in her memory, was unbearable. Instead, she stayed at the firm. Her office sat on the 15th floor overlooking downtown Portland, windows dimmed by dusk and reflection. Only a desk lamp lit the room. She took off her heels, pulled her hair back, and settled into the chair with a breath that felt like preparation. Naomi appeared in the break room 10 minutes later, 2 paper cups in hand, a folder under her arm. "You looked like you needed backup," she said, setting the coffee down. Eve took hers wordlessly. Naomi opened the folder, Trevor's case documents, texts, and screenshots tucked into color-coded dividers. "You're not alone in this. Let's make her pattern visible." Eve nodded slowly. "I'm ready." Back at her desk, Eve created a new master folder, Operation Mirror. She scanned the bank statements, uploaded text chains, flagged Sierra's fake job applications and suspicious transfers. Each file was a thread in a web she had spent years denying. She wasn't hunting from anger. This was clarity. This was justice disguised as order. Have you ever felt like your silence was part of someone else's narrative? How did you reclaim it? She found Adrian Klein's number, stared at it for a moment, then called. He picked up on the second ring, voice clipped and curious. "Adrian Klein. This is Eve Lawson. We met years ago, briefly. I need your expertise." There was a pause. "If this is about Sierra, I'm not your personal revenge attorney." Eve didn't flinch. "Then I'll find one. But I want you." They met at a quiet cafe near the University District. Adrian arrived in a dark blazer, cautious but present. Eve laid out the pattern: manipulation, financial sabotage, emotional warfare masked as charm. Adrian's expression shifted. "This isn't just personal. This is repeated predation." "I'm done being someone's footnote," Eve replied. Adrian leaned back. "How far are you willing to go before you become the thing you hate?" The air between them tightened, but Eve didn't break eye contact. Far enough to make sure no one else drowns in her wake. They formed a plan, a staged relationship. Adrian would slowly integrate himself into Sierra's world. Not fast. Not loud. Just believable enough to draw her out. Trust was her currency. And once she offered it, they'd have everything. As they talked logistics, Eve's gaze drifted toward the window, and froze. Sierra was outside, walking past, scrolling her phone, smiling to herself. Unaware. Untouched. For now. Back in Eve's apartment, she pulled out the corkboard. Trevor's texts, Sierra's posts, screenshots of flirty comments. She and Naomi sat cross-legged on the floor, piecing the network together. Sierra's sponsors. Friends. A short list of powerful names surfaced, one in particular, Victor Lang, a tech investor with a reputation for impulsive flings. Naomi tapped the name. He's your wild card. Eve nodded. He's her ripple effect. She drafted an email in Sierra's voice, casual, enticing, insider info wrapped in flirtation. The kind of bait Sierra couldn't resist. They knew she'd extend the invite. A private dinner, curated attention, a trap dressed as opportunity. She thought she controlled the narrative, Eve murmured, eyes locked on the screen. I'm about to hand her the pen she never had. Would you ever set up a trap for someone who hurt you, if it meant taking back your power? Before she hit send, Eve paused and called Dr. Harper Quinn. It had been months. The speaker crackled. Does revenge ever heal? She asked. Dr. Quinn responded softly, it can clarify, but not complete. This isn't about them. It's your next chapter. Eve hung up and turned to her closet. She picked out a simple black blazer, elegant, intentional, sharp. It wasn't for warmth. It was armor. Later that night, the email arrived in Sierra's inbox. Subject line, exclusive evening, just us. Sierra opened it. Her smile widened. She thought she was winning. We walked up the front steps together, Adrian by my side, his stride quiet but confident. The Harland home loomed in front of us, lights low, the air thick with expectation. The rare thing, I didn't feel like a guest. I felt like a strategist sneaking past the drawbridge. I noticed Sierra before anyone else did, her laughter echoing around the living room, the spotlight always on her. My parents greeted us politely. Richard clasped Adrian's hand with a firm professional grip. Diane offered me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I slid into my seat at the mahogany table, opposite Sierra, under the gleam of the chandelier. Shadows danced across the polished surface, as if every surface were watching. Sierra's phone slid off the table when Adrian glanced her way. I saw it happen, a twitch of movement I'd learned to read long before this night. My pulse steadied. I told myself, this is my moment. Have you ever gone somewhere you knew you didn't belong, but stayed anyway because it was your moment? Dinner began in the usual way, polite chatter, Richard asking too many questions about Adrian's work, Diane trying to steer the conversation toward family business. Sierra leaned in too close to Adrian, laughed too loudly, touched his arm while my plate stayed cold. Under the table, Adrian whispered, watch her posture. She thinks she's in control. I remembered Naomi's warning, control is a facade. I watched Sierra's chest lift with pleasure as Diane interrupted, maybe Adrian can help with the sentence cut off. The meaning hung unspoken. Invitations to legacy. I stiffened, forced a smile. The dinner wasn't a celebration, it was staging. I reminded myself, I play this part tonight. The actor with the composed face. If someone else wrote the rules, should you just obey, or flip the script? Halfway through dessert, Adrian excused himself. I watched him leave. Sierra leaned forward, it was chess, quiet and cold. You're doing so well for someone who used to be invisible, she drawled. My throat closed for a second but I swallowed. That's your script, not mine. She dropped a bait, I've just secured permission for a new investment. Maybe you can join us. The wink came with her voice, veiled. I picked up my water glass and set it down deliberately. I glanced at the photo frames behind her, Sierra with each of my ex-boyfriends, smiling wide. I reached into my purse, opened my phone, aimed the camera, quiet, seamless, capturing the montage. I thought, when the game is rigged, and you're dealt the cards, do you fold or play your hand? Adrian returned. He gave me a subtle nod. We had done what we came to do. Richard rose, raised his glass, to family, new ventures, and the sister we're so proud of. Everyone lifted their glasses to Sierra. I stood, voice steady but soft, thank you. I'd like to add to that, to honesty. I tapped my phone. Cameras in the house flickered, the smart system booted. Guests murmured. Sierra's practiced smile froze. I looked directly at Sierra. On Tuesday, you sent this message to Adrian. I preserved a copy. I tapped again. Silence bloomed in the room. Sierra stood abruptly, face hard. You just don't know what you're playing with, she hissed from the edge of decorum. I didn't flinch. I felt the trickle of triumph and the weight of what came next. Have you ever flipped the table when the opponent didn't expect it? What did it feel like? The rain had followed me home, tracing down the windows like cold tears. I wasn't sure which was heavier, the night's guilt or the weight in my throat. I dropped my keys, locked the door, and the moment I exhaled, my phone lit up. One message. Then another. Anonymous number, dark screen. I know what you did with Adrian. Don't think I won't leak it. My hand froze over the mug. The tea steamed oblivious to the echo of the threat. My pulse quickened as the memory of Dr. Harper Quinn's voice echoed, control can be manipulated. I opened my laptop before panic found my voice. Rain tapped the glass behind me, soft but insistent. A number trace, links, signatures, the code whispered her name. Sierra's data broker number. She wasn't hiding. Have you ever received a message that felt like a trap, and you knew exactly who sent it before you even checked the number? With trembling fingers I began retrieving everything, older threads, leaks, screenshots. I remembered the old photo, Sierra's red dress, time-stamped selfie, watch how easy he falls. That phrase echoed like a dirge. I created the folder, Evidence, SV Trevor's statements, bank logs, her social post archive. Outside, the rain hammered the street as if alarmed. Naomi's text popped up. Need backup? I answered, yes. And a public face. Lines furnished the wall, red sticky notes for threats, yellow for provocations, green for opportunity. My phone buzzed again, Adrian's name, timestamp 2:13 a.m. His voice tight, they're cleaning up traces. We need action. I paced the length of the living room, my own shadow following. My mother's words came unbidden, smile and they forget your power. I didn't smile. We go public, I said. Adrian's pause lasted 2 heartbeats. You're sure? As sure as I'm done being invisible. But then an email arrived. No subject. No sender. Just a video. Dinner night, cropped, edited, my face, his hand, laughter looped into intimacy. A trap with lights and cameras. The chair rattled when I slammed the laptop shut. Silence roared. I whispered, okay. So we changed the plan. What do you do when someone plays the next move before you finish yours? Do you fold, or flip the board? Dawn came like a warning. Rain stopped. The city sighed awake. I sat, the computer screen open, files queued. Naomi, still in? I tapped, yes. Push forward at 10. I'll post at 9:45. Adrian, ready when you are. I remembered again, healing isn't revenge, it's reclaiming your story. I typed a caption, truth cannot be hidden forever. Then uploaded. Notifications exploded. My phone trembled. My face lit with dawn and screens alike. But one message arrived just as the city woke. Nice try. But she knows your move. The glow of the first light painted shards across my window. Fear didn't vanish. It changed shape. The rain had followed me home, tracing down the windows like cold tears. I wasn't sure which was heavier, the night's guilt or the weight in my throat. I dropped my keys, locked the door, and the moment I exhaled, my phone lit up. One message. Then another. Anonymous number, dark screen. I know what you did with Adrian. Don't think I won't leak it. My hand froze over the mug. The tea steamed oblivious to the echo of the threat. My pulse quickened as the memory of Dr. Harper Quinn's voice echoed. Control can be manipulated. I opened my laptop before panic found my voice. Rain tapped the glass behind me, soft but insistent. A number trace, links, signatures, the code whispered her name. Sierra's data broker number. She wasn't hiding. Have you ever received a message that felt like a trap, and you knew exactly who sent it before you even checked the number? With trembling fingers I began retrieving everything, older threads, leaks, screenshots. I remembered the old photo, Sierra's red dress, time-stamped selfie, watch how easy he falls. That phrase echoed like a dirge. I created the folder, Evidence, SV Trevor's statements, bank logs, her social post archive. Outside, the rain hammered the street as if alarmed. Naomi's text popped up. Need backup? I answered, yes. And a public face. Lines furnished the wall, red sticky notes for threats, yellow for provocations, green for opportunity. My phone buzzed again, Adrian's name, timestamp 2:13 a.m. His voice tight, they're cleaning up traces. We need action. I paced the length of the living room, my own shadow following. My mother's words came unbidden, smile and they forget your power. I didn't smile. We go public, I said. Adrian's pause lasted 2 heartbeats. You're sure? As sure as I'm done being invisible. But then an email arrived. No subject. No sender. Just a video. Dinner night, cropped, edited, my face, his hand, laughter looped into intimacy. A trap with lights and cameras. The chair rattled when I slammed the laptop shut. Silence roared. I whispered, okay. So we changed the plan. What do you do when someone plays the next move before you finish yours? Do you fold, or flip the board? Dawn came like a warning. Rain stopped. The city sighed awake. I sat, the computer screen open, files queued. Naomi, still in? I tapped, yes. Push forward at 10. I'll post at 9:45. Adrian, ready when you are. I remembered again, healing isn't revenge, it's reclaiming your story. I typed a caption, truth cannot be hidden forever. Then uploaded. Notifications exploded. My phone trembled. My face lit with dawn and screens alike. But one message arrived just as the city woke, nice try. But she knows your move. The glow of the first light painted shards across my window. Fear didn't vanish. It changed shape. The ballroom glowed under crystal chandeliers, its light refracting like splinters across the polished floor. I stepped in wearing a sleek black blazer, the kind I'd chosen not for fashion, but for purpose. Tonight I wasn't the ignored daughter, I was the strategist in a war she didn't know she'd entered. Guests mingled around us, family friends, business associates, and there, near the entrance, the Italian investor Sierra had targeted earlier. The air smelled faintly of perfume and old money. Sierra greeted me with a warm smile and said, "Glad you could join us tonight." I returned a calm smile. Adrian leaned over and whispered, "Tonight she thinks she controls everything." I nodded, scanning the room for audio devices and hidden cameras, remembering Dr. Harper Quinn's words about telling your own story. Behind the chatter, I felt tension folding in on itself. The spotlight wasn't on me, yet I had designed the stage. Have you ever been to an event where the spotlight wasn't on you, but you planned to steal it? In the adjoining lounge, I watched Sierra slip away with the investor. It was rehearsed. Their laughter rang too loud. Her hand brushed his arm, casual but practiced. My phone, tucked into my jacket pocket, vibrated once. Naomi. Camera feed live in 5 minutes. I exhaled quietly. A live feed streamed from the lounge where I'd placed hidden cameras. Adrian's text came, "Now." I tapped a command and the banquet hall screens flickered. Then began the slideshow, photos of Sierra's past manipulations, boardroom snapshots, texts she'd written, ex-boyfriends she'd used. The investor's expression changed from amused to confused. Guests murmured. Sierra froze mid-laugh. Her empire of charm cracked under its own reflection. If you turned the tables that publicly, would you feel relief, or fear what comes next? Richard stood and raised his glass, to 30 years of love and truth. As he spoke, the screens shifted. Bold letters, "Truth cannot be hidden." Glasses clinked, forks paused mid-chew. Sierra rose, pale, face drained of color. "Very funny, Evelyn," she spat. Adrian stood behind me, voice low. This is the part where the predator meets her reflection. A waiter tray clattered, Sierra stormed out, her exit spilling champagne across the floor, sending guests gasping into chaos. My grip on the chair tightened. Naomi squeezed my hand. Adrian's calm confidence filled the space. I stayed seated, heart steady. I had executed the move. Have you ever made the perfect move, but still worried you pushed too far? The banquet dissolved under whispers and stunned glances. Richard tried to salvage the evening. Diane bowed her head, silent and ashamed. I stood in the hallway, the cool air against my face felt real after the artifice. My phone buzzed with messages of intrigue and pity. Adrian appeared beside me. "Well done," he said quietly. "Now we let it simmer." I glanced back at the still-playing screens, Sierra's exposure alive in pixel glow. I whispered to no one but the dark, "This is not revenge. This is freedom." And then, one more notification, backup footage uploaded, user Sierra V. The dominoes were falling. When you break free, do you walk away, or watch them collide? The banquet hall had fallen into an eerie silence. The screen still glowed with her voice, those slick edits, the manipulations laid bare. Crystal glasses trembled in the candlelight. Murmurs rose like restless ghosts, wrapping around the chandeliers and settling into the hush between tables. I stayed seated, calm, feet planted, mind quiet. Behind me, Adrian shifted into position, a guard in tailored suit rather than armor. Power wasn't in the grand gestures tonight, it was in the stillness, the refusal to flinch when the world expected me to. Then she burst back in, hair loose, phone in hand, voice shredding the air, "This is defamation. You'll pay for this." Her voice cracked mid-sentence, the mask slipping so fast you could almost hear the catch of panic behind the words. Richard slammed his hand on the table. "Silence," he demanded. Diane sat frozen, head bowed, no comfort offered. I looked at Sierra and whispered softly, "It's not defamation if it's true." The room froze. The truth seemed to echo louder than any shout. Have you ever seen truth explode in public, and realized that your silence was the sharpest weapon you had? Sierra raised her phone, projected a video, edited, provocative. Me and Adrian at the cafe, cropped to feel like intimacy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The investor's face colored first with shock, then confusion. Adrian leaned close. She was faster than we thought. I nodded under my breath. Then we show them the whole tape. Naomi's cue, and the banquet screen switched, raw footage, uncut, documented manipulation, her words, her angles, the real edge behind the performance. You could see the control in motion. The investor stepped forward, furious. You lied to me, Sierra. You used my name for your stunt. Her facade crumbled. Security blocked the exit at Richard's nod. The stage had flipped, her weapon thrust into her. When a liar tries to use your truth as a weapon, do you fight louder, or let the facts scream for you? Richard stood and faced Sierra, voice heavy. I raised you better than this. Diane whispered behind him, no, you didn't. I watched the betrayal of faith take shape in his eyes. For a fraction of a second, I felt pity for the little girl Sierra once was, then disgust for the woman she became. Adrian's hand settled on my shoulder. I straightened. I faced the crowd. My voice didn't crack. I didn't come here to ruin anyone. I came here to stop pretending. Diane began to cry quietly. Screens froze on the still image of Sierra's own confession text. The banquet hall held its breath. The truth had landed. Would you expose your own family if silence meant losing yourself? Sierra collapsed into sobs, begging Richard, please, Dad, make them stop. He stood torn, hand halfway raised, then stalled. Diane rose, walked to me, took my hand. It's time to end this, she whispered. I nodded. Adrian flicked the feed off. Silence filled the hall, heavy, raw. Guests rose, dispersed in murmurs, the champagne smell mixed with uncertainty. Sierra glared at me, you think this makes you better than me? I answered softly, no. It just makes me free. As I walked toward the exit, reporters flooded the corridor. Flashing cameras, microphones extended. One rushed up, Miss Harland, would you like to comment on the scandal? I paused, inhaled the cool night air. Then I smiled faintly. If you could say one thing after exposing the truth, would it be revenge or release? The morning light crept slowly through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Adrian's penthouse, painting the city's skyline gray and tired, like the mood I carried. I sat fully dressed in the corner, legs crossed and coffee in hand, staring at a mug half empty as if it held all the answers. Adrian poured another cup without saying a word. Our silence wasn't awkward, it was veteran. The TV on mute flashed headlines, Harland heiress exposes sister in corporate betrayal. I whispered, it's strange how truth sounds louder when strangers echo it. Naomi's text arrived, our clips hit 1 million in 3 hours. Public's swinging your way. Stay ahead. My phone buzzed, the dawn felt heavier now. When your side of the story finally hits the world, do you feel vindicated or even more vulnerable? At the firm later that morning, the corporate atmosphere felt altered. Some staff offered discreet nods, others didn't meet my eyes. My assistant whispered just outside the boardroom door, there's an emergency board meeting at 2 p.m. Richards called in remotely. Inside the room, I presented a memo, confidential data misused, blackmail of competitors, documented. The board listened. A vote was taken. Sierra was suspended from all company roles. Richard abstained. I walked out head high, but hands trembling once I reached the hallway. Adrian waited quietly beside his car. Have you ever stood alone in a room full of power, and still walked away stronger? Meanwhile, Sierra's world collapsed quietly. She watched her own clips on loop, headlines flashing beside her in the early dawn. Diane tried to reach her, no answer. Richard's number buzzed on her phone. It rang out. At his office, Richard hung up and muttered, "She's her mother's daughter." A flashback, 13-year-old Sierra in the corner as Richard yelled at Diane for spoiling her. "She'll turn into a viper." Back in the present, Sierra threw her phone against the wall. Glass cracked. She breathed hard. Cornered by the empire she built. Do you feel sympathy for someone who was broken young, but chose to become the destroyer? Later, I found myself on a stage at a Women in Business summit. Naomi stood off to the side. I began, "Some truths don't just hurt, they restructure your entire identity." The applause came not for my elegance but for my story. Backstage, an older woman whispered, "Thank you. That was my daughter's story too." Adrian watched from the back row, impressed but distant. I smiled, half wistful. Then my phone pinged, an unknown number. Message, "Not all of Sierra's secrets have surfaced yet. Meet me tomorrow, alone." The storm had quieted. But what if the next thunder rolled right behind it? The morning skyline glimmered in pale silver as Eve stood alone on the rooftop terrace of her firm, the breeze brushing through her hair like a whisper of closure. She stared across downtown Portland, arms wrapped loosely around herself, and thought, victory doesn't always roar. Her phone buzzed with headlines still churning, yet the world below looked oddly still. Naomi stepped beside her, 2 coffees in hand. "They're saying you did it without vengeance," she said. Eve took one, her voice even, "because I needed peace more than revenge." A flash of memory, Sierra screaming at the dinner table, reporters swarming the garden, Adrian holding the door open quietly, crashed against the calm now. Eve unfolded a sealed envelope labeled "Corporate Restructuring." Inside, formal language confirmed Sierra's full removal from all boards, her accounts frozen pending audit. "When the storm ends, do you feel changed, or do you just keep walking through the wreckage?" Later that day, Eve entered the firm's private conference room, where Richard, Diane, Adrian, and the Harlan board were already seated. The air was still but thick with years unspoken. Diane cleared her throat first. "I should have listened. I failed you, Eve. And I kept silent because it was easier." Her voice shook as she met her daughter's gaze, eyes glistening. Richard remained stiffer, but said, "I prioritized image. I lost the person behind it." Eve folded her hands. "This isn't about forgiveness yet. It's about truth and alignment." There was no drama, no shouting, just the weight of clarity finally voiced. When Sierra's legal team arrived, they offered a pre-written statement. The board refused to hear it. The decision stood, unwavering. Have you ever waited for someone's apology, and realized you'd already moved on before they said it? That evening, in her home study, Eve carefully arranged folders marked Harlan Legacy Advisory, Ethics and Empowerment. She tapped the stack, a physical reminder of what could grow from destruction. On her desk sat a half-written article titled "How to Reclaim Your Power After Familial Betrayal." Naomi's message popped up, "Chicago talk is locked in. You're on stage next month." Eve whispered to herself, from nearly invisible to the one rewriting the narrative. Her sticky note board, once littered with accusations and threads, now held one last message: freedom isn't followed, it's chosen. The doorbell rang. Eve answered to find a courier holding a slim black box. The label read, "SV, for your eyes only." When you know you've changed the game, what's the next move you don't show anyone? She didn't open the box. Not yet. Instead, Eve turned to the wall in her study where old travel photos of Mark, Logan, and Ryan used to hang. Now, they were covered with handwritten notes, lessons she refused to forget. Adrian stepped inside quietly, and for a moment, just watched her. She glanced at him and smiled. "Ready for the next chapter?" he asked. I already started writing it, she said. Behind her, the box waited like a final test. Not everything was finished. But not everything needed to be. What do you do when the battle is over, but the war for your future has just begun? The early sun painted golden streaks across Eve's study as she opened the blinds. Her fingers lingered on the window frame a moment longer than usual. This view, once a backdrop to sleepless worry, now felt like a promise. On her desk sat the unopened black box from Sierra. She glanced at it, then turned away, placing it aside with no urgency. Not yet, she murmured. Naomi entered with 2 breakfast burritos and a wink. Ready for the next phase? Eve smiled. Yes. This dissolves the past. She picked up a whiteboard marker and wrote across a blank board, Legacy through Truth. Then she grabbed her phone and dialed. Trevor Hillman? It's Eve. I'm building something new. I want you on my advisory board. On the screen, the city buzzed into its weekday rhythm. Have you ever closed one door quietly and opened another brightly, as if the light waited for you? The conference room gleamed with floor-to-ceiling windows as Eve stepped in. Trevor was already seated, and Adrian followed close behind. Around the table sat a group of women, executives, entrepreneurs, all scarred in ways too familiar. Trevor introduced her. This is Eve Harland. She turned her silence into strategy. Now, she helps others do the same. Eve stood at the head of the table. You're not defined by what happened to you. You're defined by what you decide to build from it. A woman with silver hair and fierce eyes shared her story, how a sibling weaponized their family name for profit. Eve nodded slowly. You recognized the pattern. That's your strength. Adrian chimed in, evidence is power. But you don't build courage from proof. You build it by standing in your truth. The group was silent for a beat, then one by one, they began to speak. When your pain becomes your platform, what happens next is not about revenge, but purpose. Later that afternoon, Eve returned to her favorite park bench overlooking the Willamette River. The leaves above rustled gently, their golden edges whispering of change. She sat, letting her body breathe fully for the first time in weeks. Dr. Harper Quinn's words returned to her, healing isn't a destination, it's a direction. She checked her phone, client rosters, media inquiries, articles she'd written gaining traction. Her life had shifted. Memory fragments passed through her like echoes, the cold garage, the threatening messages, the crash of champagne flutes at the banquet. All of it was past, but none of it forgotten. She whispered, I no longer wait for permission. Naomi's text popped up, media wants your feature, from ghosted to boardroom. Eve smiled, not with pride, but peace. Have you ever felt the weight lift, not when the person apologized, but when you stopped waiting for it? As dusk crept into the skyline, Eve returned home. Her study was dim but welcoming. The black box from Sierra still waited on her desk, unopened, unchanged. She stood over it, hand hovering, but then slowly turned away. Some answers didn't need opening to be understood. In the next room, Trevor and the advisory clients had gathered for a planning session. What's next for you, Eve? Trevor asked as she entered. She straightened her blazer, voice clear, I'm building something unforgettable, not for her, but for me. The moment was hers, unclouded. But just as they began, her phone buzzed. A message, no name, ready when you are. The same number that once warned her about Sierra. Her hand tightened slightly around the device. The box remained. The past lingered. The work continued. If you've rebuilt your life, what unspoken box are you still carrying, waiting to open or leave behind?